Hey, how we doing, Mount Moriah and my amazing cohort group? This is Kimberly, and I am coming to you today to talk about this thing called sugar and really break it down. I have noticed that we're doing a great job. I know that making lifestyle shifts and all the things that you're doing, it's not easy. So I commend you for that. One thing I do see though is that we are reaching for sugar in all kinds of ways. So I want to help you understand that anything that's not a fat or a protein is sugar. And when you're in a vegetarian state, beans and rice are still sugar. They're still, they toe the line between carbohydrate and protein. A complete protein when you put them together, beans and rice, because they don't have all the amino acids like animal meats do. So you have to kind of couple them together to get that complete profile. But when I'm seeing things like oatmeal with dates and strawberries and mango and syrup and whatever else, what you're doing is creating a sugar high that sometimes is even more of a sugar high than if you were to just eat a piece of cake. And I'm not telling you to go eat a piece of cake, but I really want to make sure that you understand the addiction of sugar. Sugar is a drug. It literally plays on the brain just like cocaine. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but I just want you to understand that it's a real addiction. It is not something that we should take lightly in a space of, just saying, I just have a little bit of a sugar problem. It really is hard to let go of that stronghold. And you really have to pray, and you really have to seek alternatives, and you really do have to, ask the Holy Spirit to guide you through this process. But really check yourself to see how much sugar you are consuming and how many carbohydrates you're taking in. Because every time we eat a potato, every time we eat corn, every time we eat rice, every time we eat fruit, especially when we load it up, we're increasing insulin in the body. And yes, fruit's better than processed sugar, but it still is sugar. And if you really want to help with an insulin spike, we want to make sure that every time we eat a carbohydrate, every time, that you couple it with protein and fat. Okay? So if I'm going to have a smoothie in the morning, I'm not just going to have a fruit smoothie. I'm going to have protein powder, vegan protein powder, pea protein in my smoothie, and I'm going to have an avocado or MCT oil in my smoothie to emulsify it, give it its creaminess, but then reduce my insulin spike. So I'm just coming to you kind of like as big sis and coach, and just letting you know that we really have to watch how much sugar we're taking in, even if it's not in a form of processed sugars. Okay, so that's kind of my little pep talk to you after seeing a couple of weeks of food posted. And I want you to know, extremely proud of everything that you have going on, but I really want you to be educated on how to take it out of the diet. So we're going to talk a little bit. Remember, I talked about education and knowing things about what sugar does to the body. It just might convince you I need to give this up and I need to do a better job. So the first thing I want you to realize is that sugar is more responsible for heart disease than fat is. In Harvard in 1960, there's a big controversy. If you ever want to Google Harvard 1960 food controversy or sugar controversy, these scientists were paid off to divert the attention off of the sugar industry due to the fact that they were trying to say that that fat was the culprit for heart disease and not sugar. And it's actually not the way. Now, trans fats, yes, they can cause coronary disease, but sugar is really the culprit for most heart disease. So just understand that 22 teaspoons of sugar is the average of what an American consumes a day. 22 teaspoons. And that's on the light side, because if you have one of those big gulps from, what is it called? Like 7-Eleven or one of those places, right? Quick Stop or Quick Trips or whatever they're called, Wawa's, wherever you live. Just know that that is 3/4 of a cup of sugar. 78 grams or something like that of sugar. Divide that by 4 and you have how many teaspoons of sugar is in there. So just understand that sugar can creep in really high, and those grams happen fast. I want you to remember the number 4, okay? So for every 4 grams of sugar, it's 1 teaspoon of sugar. So look at the back of your packages and see how many grams of sugar. If it's 20 grams of sugar, divide that by 4, that means it's 5 teaspoons of sugar. And for a woman, we're only supposed to have 6 teaspoons of sugar a day. 6, that's it. Okay, so 6 times 4 is 24. So you should only really have 24 grams of sugar a day. Sometimes we get that in one sitting, okay? And then for men, it should be 9. So that would be 36 grams of sugar a day. That's not a lot, all right? So those little quick math conversions you can do for yourself and understand that we are way, way, way over consuming of sugar per day. All right, so 1 sugary drink raises your risk of non-alcohol related fatty liver disease. That's huge. Like, who wants to have fatty liver disease? That's usually associated with someone who is an alcoholic. And so that's not what we want to have happen. So understand that one of the major culprits of that would be high fructose corn syrup. And I know we should be away from that right now, but understand even when you bring certain foods back in after Temple Cleanse, if it's high fructose corn syrup, you really want to stay away, because it is, and it has been labeled like a weapon of mass destruction when it comes to our health. And it's in so many foods, so many. So let's take an opportunity to eliminate high fructose corn syrup altogether from our diet from this moment henceforward and forevermore, okay? The other thing is that the amount of sugar that you eat can adversely affect your microbiome. And your microbiome is just a big word for your gut and all of the microbes and the organisms that live inside of your stomach and your intestinal lining that keep you healthy, that help your immune system, that help you to digest food, that signals through the vagus nerve to the brain to have a happy hormonal life, okay? So all of that microbiome is affected by the amount of sugar. And if you have too much sugar, it creates what we call candida in the diet, or basically a yeast infection. We don't want that in our gut, okay? I've had it, and trust me, it makes it very difficult to not crave sugar, okay? Because the yeast itself is asking for more and more and more. So I just want you to make sure that you understand that sugar can destroy the microbiome, and in that you end up with something called leaky gut, and then you have a lot of food allergies and things that create havoc down the road, from diverticulitis to Crohn's disease. So just know that sugar is a huge culprit in changing your digestive system. So remember, we just talked a little bit about leaky gut and other metabolic diseases like diabetes, of course. Sugar can change, like I said, your microbiota. I think I went over that. I'm just trying to make sure, look at my notes. All right, so then also, this one most people know, but sugar, of course, makes you more prone to type 2 diabetes. Nobody wants to develop type 2 diabetes and be dependent upon insulin. And if you already are, there are things that you can do to reduce that. And so we want to make sure that we're staying away from processed sugars. But then also, when you think about what kind of fruits are going to be best for someone who might be diabetic or have insulin resistance, it's going to be something like a strawberry, a blueberry, a blackberry, a raspberry. Things that are low, those are low on the glycemic index. Using something like monk fruit, where it's keto, it has 0 glycemic index effect. Those are some of the things, 0 calorie. Those are some of the things that you want to think about doing. Stevia, while a lot of people tout it, it actually can lower blood pressure. So you have to be mindful of that as well. So I like monk fruit and xylitol is my two favorite, but the other downside to xylitol is if you have a dog, xylitol can be poisonous to your animal. So a lot of times I say sometimes you don't want to cook with xylitol, because if, let's say, they eat, you know, a cookie off your counter and you don't realize it, you could harm your fuzzy friend, okay? The other thing that sugar is notorious for is increasing cancer cells. It feeds cancerous cells. Cancer feeds off of sugar. So, you know, we all, and this maybe sounds surprising to some people, but everyone has cancer cells in their body. It's whether they metastasize and become a disease state. So if I am constantly providing my body with sugar, even something that might be small in a particular area, my fighter cells come in and take care of those cancerous cells. They're gone. There's no issue, no problem. But the more sugar I feed my body, what I'm trying to say is we all have cancer cells, but whether or not the cluster gets bigger and bigger and creates a cancer that cannot be controlled by my already powerful immune system, then sugar feeds that. And so I always tell people that I work with that have cancer, we really have to get you on a keto type diet that's low in sugar, so we're not feeding the cancerous cells, because cancer cannot survive if there's no sugar. Cannot survive. It feeds off of sugar. So if we can alter the state of our bodies in some way, shape, or form, that can be really, really helpful. All right, so moving on. Sugar is only really needed by the brain, and it's not needed by processed sugar is not needed. It's just almost like the fruit sugar. So there are other names for sugar, and I'm going to pull that up on my computer. I want to kind of help you understand what some of those are. So you may anything that you see that says dose, like fructose, dextrose, all of that kind of thing, sucralose, any lose, that is a sugar. So you can hear brown sugar, confectioner's powder sugar, corn syrup is sugar, corn syrup solids, dextrose, fructose, high fructose corn syrup, invert sugar, lactose, another toast is sugar, malt sugar, maltose, remember the toast is there, molasses, pancake syrup, raw sugar, sucralose, sugar like regular, and white granule sugar. So those are some of the names for added sugars that you might see in your recipes and things like that. So just understand that. Now, what does sugar do to the brain? This is one of the things I was talking about a little bit earlier. It is a drug, like I said, and it plays with the dopamine in your body. So it releases dopamine, and dopamine is that feel-good hormone that goes, woo, give me some more. Social media is one of those things where you get a like and you get, ooh, a rush, and you're like, oh, somebody likes me, or you get that bite of something sweet and you're like, ah. But guess what? The problem with dopamine is that the more dopamine that fires, the more you want it. And then it's harder to get the same rush, just like a drug addict chasing a cocaine high. The first time it's euphoric, and then you're always chasing it, because once that release happens, you need more in order to have that same. And the same thing happens, or that same response. And the same thing happens with sugar. If you have way too much sugar, then you have this big response and you need more and more, which then creates insulin resistance for the body. And we can't produce the insulin that we need to normalize the sugar into our blood. Okay, and that's when you have to start taking insulin to be able to control those spikes, and we don't want that. All right. The other thing is that sugar can also affect your body in a sense of depression and anxiety. So if you suffer with depression or anxiety, and there's no shame in that at all, understand that sugar can be a huge factor in exacerbating that issue. Okay, so we want to make sure that you're not feeding, because it affects, like I said, the microbiome, which in turn talks through the vagus nerve to the brain and alters brain activity and can create issues of depression and anxiety. So just know that. It can also cause cognitive defects and deficits in your memory and recall. So just understand that it can also change gene expression in your, prodigy, your children, that kind of thing. So we want to make sure that, especially for those who are trying to conceive, that you're not consuming too much sugar, because like I said, it can change your gene expression. All right. The other thing, the neurotransmitters, that's what I was talking about, that gut to brain connection affects learning, as I said, and memory. And then we call it the brain-derived neuropathic factors, okay? Or neurotrophic factors, excuse me. Brain-derived neurotrophic factors like Alzheimer's. Sugar can affect Alzheimer's. So a lot of times if I have someone who seems to be on the verge of dementia, I tell them we've got to really reduce your sugar consumption for those things to not be as large, meaning that you can start to get your memory back if you catch it fast enough and start reducing the amount of sugar. All right, so before we close up, I've got a few things, ways in which you can kick your habit. Get more protein, okay? More protein in your diet. Also consume healthy fats. And remember, I told you if you eat any carbohydrates at all, you want to put them together with proteins and with fats, all right? So that. Then get more fiber in your diet, all right? And if you have a hard time getting fiber in your diet, you can also use something called acacia fiber, all right? It's I think, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's something tummy fiber. But if you put in Amazon, or if you look on my Amazon page, which is Amazon/shop/do all things with joy, you can see it on one of my lists, the acacia fiber there. I think it's called Heather's tummy fiber or something like that. Then also more sour foods in your diet, things like sauerkraut, kombucha, pickles, kimchi, things like that. Those are probiotic foods. I'm not talking about the dairy side. Everybody knows about yogurt, but more sour foods, natto, anything like that. Those are things, even tempeh can be helpful, miso soup, sour things like that will help with the cravings for sugar, because it's going to change your microbiome and it's going to kill some of those things off. Also, if you have candida, the best thing to kill candida is MCT oil. So put some MCT oil in your tea like this I have here. Just put a teaspoon or a tablespoon of the MCT oil in there. You won't even taste it. It's like flavorless in my opinion. Texture wise, you might feel a little bit of it, but flavor is not a problem. So just do that and put that into your diet or into that, and it can help kill off the candida and yeast in the gut. And then also using stevia and monk fruit, we talked about that as a substitute. Also understand that dates, coconut sugar, maple syrup, strap molasses, monk fruit, balsamic glaze, and bananas are all good substitutes. But I would say that if you're really looking for less of an impact to your glycemic index and load on your body, then I would say stick with the monk fruit or the xylitol. But remember my caveat about xylitol. All right, and remember stevia is an option, but it does lower blood pressure. So be mindful with that. All right, so I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you now, maybe there was something, whether it's the cancer or whether it's the cardiovascular disease or the microbiome or depression or whatever it is, I hope that there was something that you can grab a hold of and say, I don't want that in my life. I don't want type 2 diabetes. There's something that makes you say, you know what, I'm gonna do my best to take sugar out of my life in excess. So I'm here for you every step of the way. I can't wait to get to meet you all in our one-on-ones starting pretty soon. I hope that you've signed up for that for those who are part of the cohort. And I look forward to coming to you next week with our topic of choice, which is going to be understanding blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, BMI, things like that people talk about. I want to break that down for you. All right, so until next week, have an amazing week. I hope that you are learning a lot and that you are enjoying this process. And I will see you again soon. Peace and blessings.